That's what it's like, wow, that looks really great. We can keep those. So, you know, Crypt Keeper wound up with Chucky's eyes, which is kind of cool. And the very first puppet they made was, you know, because they didn't have as much budget, didn't have as much servos, those little motors that they use on those model airplanes, you know, that people fly remotely. So that the Crypt Keeper is made with all these different servos, and he has like a clear plastic head underneath, and over top of it, they had to replace the skin, the elastic skin on that every time they shot a new show, because it would tear. It was so thin, so that it could move well, it would tear and disintegrate like overnight. So all the hair and everything had to be built every episode. Every time they used Crypt Keeper, they had to, you know, make more of those. So it was kind of an expensive ordeal, but the mouth moved much slower in the first season. So, you know, when I had come in to audition for it, I did to Kevin, I was like, you know, be careful what you ask for. You may get it. He's like, Joel Silver and Richard Donner's office doing it for him. I was like, oh my God, Joel Silver, Richard Donner. And they're like, that's great, kid. We'll see you on the set tomorrow. And I thought they were just yanking my chain, man. I didn't really think that they were hiring me on the spot like that. But sure enough, I got the job. So I was coming in with this, you know, bing bang, funny Jerry Lewis delivery, you know. When I had gone into audition for it, I saw that he had the holes in his throat. And I'm thinking, okay, he's got to be a little bit of a, you know, cackle. It's kind of like a Margaret Hamilton from The Wizard of Oz. And, you know, he's got to have kind of a Henny Youngman kind of delivery. He's a comedian. And he's got to have that posting thing, kind of like a Rod Serling, kind of macabre, kind of even more of Alfred Hitchcock, when he used to do Alfred Hitchcock Presents. And those are the elements that I put together in my audition when I auditioned for it. But when we got into the studio to start recording, I'd be like, hey, creeps, welcome to this little tale. And he goes, no, slow down. The puppet will never be able to keep up with you. The first season. So, if you notice the first season, the voice is much slower and more honest. And that was only because of the puppet couldn't keep up with the, you know, the comic kind of thing. And then, of course, when we got picked up for more seasons, they gave him a bigger budget. We got to, you know, build it the way he wanted it. We got to do the voice the way we like to do it. So that's how we went up doing the show. Over the years, it developed into more of, you know, I would just crack them up by improvising stuff, like you're seeing they're doing. You know, the Crypt Keeper has Marlon Brando doing a street party in his eye. And eventually they started writing that stuff into it. So by like the 4th, 5th, and 6th season, you see a lot of that stuff in there. But it was always so much. I never knew what they were going to throw at me. It was always a lot of fun. The puppeteers, of course, were really talented. Somebody had a Digby Deal book that was, I don't know if anybody in here has the tabletop book that has the history of the Tales from the Crypt, but it shows how the puppeteers worked. The puppet somebody would hold. There was one guy, Van Snowden, God bless him, he died last year, cancer, poor man, but he was an amazing puppeteer. He worked the head in one of the hands. Somebody else worked the torso in the other hand. Then remotely, a guy named Brock Winkless had on a headgear, and it had wires leading to the puppet, and he would do this with his jaw, and that would move the jaw, and then he also had separate little toggle switches for the lips. And then there was another guy that worked, you know, the tongue and this part of the face, and another guy just worked the eyes and the forehead. So they all synced together to make this one thing move. It's amazing.
And did you record it?
I would have to go.
You recorded first, and then they.
Oh yeah, they needed something to follow. You know, there's no way that they could something nothing. You know, I mean, they had to all follow. I mean, basically, they were trying to imitate my performance in the studio, so they would videotape me and also record me doing the Crypt Keeper in the studio. And then, and Kevin was always a part of that process since he was also directing, you know, the puppet sequences. So he would know what he needed, and I would give him a performance, and they would try to imitate my performance. And so they had become so good at it. Somebody today said that they had seen the Horror Hall of Fame awards that were done years ago, where Robert Englund and I had given Vincent Price the Horror Hall of Fame award and George Romero, and they did it on the Conan stage at Universal Studios in LA. And Robert was on stage, and I was like the guy that was, the Crypt Keeper was in the back, and they're like, and now let's cut to something really scary. A commercial! We were just making up stuff, and I was sitting off there improvising stuff, and the puppeteers were sitting there watching me. That's how good they were. They were just following what I was doing, and maybe the guy that was doing the mouth is the one that had to be the closest to what I was doing, and maybe he was like a fraction behind me that you never would have noticed as an audience, but that's how good these guys were. And so he developed over time into they started pimping them out to, Universal Horror Nights and, not scary films. And they had a whole, slasher stunt show where there'd be blood at the audience the whole time and all that stuff. The Crypt Keeper would pop up out of the stage and they had some really floppy kind of Crypt Keeper had something working with one hand. But from a distance, it did still look like a Crypt Keeper. But that's kind of how it's evolved over the years. We did our 93, 96 episodes, and it's a very expensive show to do, and with the producers being who they were, Joel Silver and Richard Donner and Walter Hill, Bob Zemeckis, and David Geiler. Hey, nobody walks out on me.
I personally have to go. We talked about this.
You go ahead.
Yeah. Lena's going to take over for you for questions.
Thank you. Oh, we're cool. Oh, we have plenty of time for questions. They call a lot of favors. They were powerful guys, and anybody would want to work for them. So they got all the stars to work for scale. They got a lot of people throwing favors to record things. It's a very expensive show to do. So bringing it back on, it has been a tough venture over the years with new episodes. I know a lot of people ask that question often. And they let the rights lapse. So the Gaines family still have the rights, but them knowing what precious property it is, they probably don't want to give it away for any kind of reasonable amount of money. But we can only hope that that'll happen in the future, because certainly, I would envision that, the first season when we first launched the first series was launched with Robert Zemeckis, who was a producer, doing an episode, and Walter Hill doing an episode. Robert Zemeckis did the Christmas episode that we all love, and Walter Hill did The Man Who Was Deaf with William Sadler, which was a great episode. And then, of course, Richard Donner did the 9 Lives episode with Joey Pants, playing the circus guy who had 9 lives because he had the liver of a cat. And so my dream would be for them to redo that kind of thing with, Tarantino and Rodriguez and maybe, Eli Roth or somebody doing the first 3 episodes and launch it that way would be a cool thing. But, I don't have a say-so in it. I'm a hired gun, so. And with that, I will launch the questions. Any specific questions anybody might have?
Up here. We'll try to come as far as we can.
I know I've told you pretty much everything you might want to know. Do you have a question?
What was your favorite episode making?
Making or watching or what was done or?
Being a part of, what was your favorite?
Oh, being a part of. Well, it was great for me because if there were, I got to go down to a lot of different sets to work, anytime I wanted to go down to the set, I could go down to the set and watch them shoot anything I wanted, pretty much. And I certainly didn't waste that opportunity to see. I remember seeing some Death of Some Salesman with Tim Curry playing the mother, the daughter, and the father. And going down, and my parents were in town, and they had never seen anything shooting. They just couldn't believe it. It was Tim Curry as this hunchback woman with hammer toes and teeth. He was playing the daughter. They were like, oh my God, that's a man. And that was an amazing opportunity to go see him do it. But also, anytime there was scenes with the Crypt Keeper, And they needed somebody to play off of a celebrity that was in the, like Arnold Schwarzenegger or that Pompey. I had worked with some stars, but these guys were some of the biggest stars. Definitely the Arnold Schwarzenegger one was a lot of fun to do because I got to work with Arnold. And the Whoopi Goldberg one, which was, I think it was Skin Deep, was that one, about the tattoo new kind of thing.
Dead weight.
Dead weight, thank you. I should have had a story. Musical for how long? Well, you know more about it. It's kind of like a blur to me after all those years. But, so that was a fun one. As far as episodes to see, I mean, I loved The Man Who Was Dead that Walter Hill directed, which was not the first episode shot, but it was the first episode shown. And I just loved the style of that for a Tales from the Crypt episode, because William Sadler, very often in the comic books, the character would talk to the audience in the comic books, and I love that they did that. It didn't in the original comic book of that story, but they did do it for that episode. William Sadler talks to the audience, and Walter Hill always uses Ry Cooder a lot for the music for his films, and he got Ry Cooder to do the music for that, and so it's like, it's got this really great steel string guitar kind of thing going on, and he's talking, it's an ugly job, somebody's got to do it kind of thing. It's a great episode where he was the executioner, pulling the handle on the electric chair for people, and they abolished the death penalty in his state. So he goes about as a vigilante, killing people, like frying them in their hot tub, bad guys in their hot tub and stuff. And he gets caught, and they reinstate the death penalty just for him. And he gets fried in the end. And then, of course, probably my favorite sequences of it is the Crypt Keeper sitting in the electric chair, frying himself and getting off on it. And it's just definitely one of my favorites. Next question. Hi, nice to see you.
I just had to ask, because I'm a huge Reefer Madness fan. There's something
Dude, I thought you were going down another path.
No, I was just really curious on how that process went for you, and like just getting into that music.
Well, Reefer Madness was a labor of love. Good question, thank you. If you haven't seen Reefer Madness, you should catch it because it's just so much fun. The actors were having so. It's got a great cast. It's me and Alan Cumming and Kristen Bell and Stephen Weber and Anna Gasteyer and Nev Campbell. It's just a really great cast of people. And originally it was a stage production in a very small theater in LA, a 99-seat theater they call Equity Waiver, where you get paid just cab fare every night you perform, and that's it. But you do that kind of thing because that kind of thing won't get produced on a big scale where you do get paid. So if you're making enough money as an actor on camera and stuff, which very often is not the favorite projects, they just pay the most. They don't really challenge you as much. You get to go on stage and do the stuff that you cut your teeth on doing like a great musical on stage. So I had a friend, Andy Fickman, who was the director, who also you guys know from directed Race to Witch Mountain, You Again, She's the Man. Anyway, he's a great guy. He's a fun director. And was going to direct the musical in this small theater, and I had a lot on my plate at the time, and he called me up and he goes, look, these two guys wrote this musical, and when they thought of this character of Ralph, I don't know why they thought of me, but they thought of me. Now, if you hadn't seen the movie, Ralph is this guy who's been stoned for so many years. It takes place in the 30s, like the original movie of Reefer Madness. He's in his 40s, and he's still wearing his collared sweater because he's never left the reefer den. He's been stoned for 20 years, He's, stuck in his life, and he's the guy that everybody's afraid of becoming. In the end, he's so high he becomes paranoid and eats people. In the end, it's the munchies so bad he eats salad, and unravels as the story goes. So he asked me if I wanted to come do this small production, 90 Nights at the Theater, and I'm like, I got a lot going on, Andy. And he goes, we're gonna have a crap load of fun, and I got some so and so, so I'm like, I'm there, man. So I wound up doing that show for 2 years in LA, on and off. I got a job, I'd go do it, and there was other actors who wanted to play the parts, for fun and coming in and out. And whenever I came back, the part was waiting for me, and they finally got the backing to go do it off Broadway. So we went to New York and got it all rehearsed, and we were 5 days before we opened. September 11th happened, which was I could have definitely done without living in New York at that time. I was living on 10th Street, which is about a mile away from Ground Zero. It was a terrible day. I won't go into that because it just was not something you really want to hear too much about. I'm sure we've all experienced a lot about that over the years. But here we are. We're trying to open a show, and off-Broadway doesn't run on a big budget the way a Broadway show does. Broadway show has a lot of backing behind it, and they expect to lose money up to a certain point, and then it has to start making money. And so the investors have put enough money in knowing they're going to lose some money until they make money, kind of like a restaurant. Off-Broadway, if it doesn't start immediately making money, it shuts down. So we opened the show. It was in a theater down by NYU, so we got a lot of the NYU students, and it actually